right, so everybody here all right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Sound check good.
Cool. So we're going to try calling my dad and see if we can get him on the phone and see if he can tell us some stories and memories of his childhood growing up on the farm and then some. So let's see if we can get him on the phone here.
All right.
My hands. I don't know what to do with my hands.
It's kind of cool. You can hear the dial, you
That's
know?
nice.
I feel like we should crank call him first.
Yeah. No, he probably won't answer.
Hello.
Dad.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got Jesse and Jason Ball and Jared and myself up here. We're all sitting here with microphones and headphones, and got you on the phone. We can all hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yep. Hear you real good.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, have you got time to tell a few stories?
Well, I'll try.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's.
If I don't get stage fright.
Yeah. Well, we're all just going to try to relax and just kind of pretend like we're,
Okay.
just sitting in a room and just carrying on a conversation here.
All right. Well, where do we want to start?
Well, let's go back where we kind of were a little bit ago there. You were kind of telling what your first memories were on the farm there, regarding
okay.
horses and tractors coming on the scene.
Yeah. Well, every farmer had horses, and they had them about everybody had horses up until let's see, probably about the late 40s, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons that they kept horses even after they got a tractor was because at least the early ones couldn't cultivate corn. They were just a standard tractor, and so finally the companies came out with a narrow front and they could bolt a cultivator on there. And so my dad started in selling tractors in 1915, and when tractors came out, they really caught his interest because he didn't like farming with horses.
Right.
So he and his brother were farming 240 acres with horses, and so there was some convention that he and his brother went to. I know they went on the train. I don't know where it was, but anyway, there they talked to this outfit, this Emerson. Well, it was a distributor that had this Emerson tractor,
Mm-hmm.
and Dad didn't have any money, and somehow or another these companies were anxious to sell. There were a lot of small companies that weren't like their big companies like John Deere and all that. They wasn't there, hadn't come around yet. But
Right.
anyway, so they made a deal with him that they'd send him a tractor, and he could use it on his farm, and then try to sell it to the neighbors and whatever.
So this was about
1915.
1915. All right.
And they were really primitive tractors. And I've got a picture of one in my office there. And it had just one big wide rear wheel, which was a wide deal, was kind of lugs like on it, and two wide front wheels. And they did that so they didn't have to have a differential in there. So anyway, that thing wasn't very successful at all. And so I don't think he ever sold one, but they took that back and gave him something better, which he did sell. So he kept on doing that up through the years, and the what became John Deere was a Waterloo Boy, and in about 1919, this distributor company that Dad got connected with had this Waterloo Boy. So Dad sold a few of them, but then John Deere bought that company out. So then, so Dad continued, and the one that he had when I very first remember was a Hart Parr, which was a two-cylinder. There's a picture of one
Okay.
with Mom and Helen on
Yeah,
there.
so that's that picture we saw the other day.
Yeah, and it was a pretty successful tractor as far as
So
pulling stuff.
So what about the farmers, you know, at that time seeing this first tractor? I mean, what was their, you know, take on it? I
Well,
mean, were they like, you know, anxious to give it a try or not so much?
oh, it was kind of slow going, but finally they kind of got onto it.
Mm-hmm.
But what really changed the tractor business, though, was Ford in about 1916 or 17 came out what they called the Fordson tractor. And it sold as low as finally as $375, $375, FOB Detroit. And they were sold to the car dealers. And car dealers didn't really like them too good because they pushed a lot of them off. But by about 1920, half of the tractors that were ever manufactured were Fordsons. And but Ford kept doing that until 1927 and never changed it hardly at all, just kind of like you did when they had 8N. And so people began to buy other makes because they wanted a bigger size and some that would cultivate corn and all that. So Ford quit making tractors in the United States in 1927, and then never started again until the 9N in 1939, and that's when Dad. Fall in 1939, Dad saw the Ford tractor with a 3-point hitch and all that
Yeah.
at the state fair, and I didn't like the looks of him, but he got all taken up with them and inquired around and finally got the dealership in January of 1940,
Right.
and so but anyway. Getting back to when I first started.
So you were saying that you really didn't have too much experience yourself with using horses. I mean, of course, Grandpa did, but
No, I didn't, because I just remember when Dad sold he had a team of horses, but I remember selling them, and I used to remember what their name was. I don't, but
so how old were you about that time?
I was probably 4, something like that.
Okay.
And but
All right.
then what he did, one of the reasons they kept horses, to cultivate and to plant corn and to pick corn. And so Dad, as I remember, didn't have a corn planter, but he would do custom work like plow for a neighbor, and the neighbor then had a corn planter, would plant our corn.
Now plant it with a tractor or plant it with?
Well, no, with horses.
Okay.
The reason a tractor was slow coming with a corn planter is because they couldn't control the weeds without what they called checking the corn. And they had the 2-row corn planter had a roll of wire that had links on it every 42 inches. So when they plant corn, they would the first row through would unwind this corn or this wire and lay it out. And then when they came back, there was a deal on the side of it that would run through the planter with a couple pulleys that have to guide it, and it would trip the deal. The planter would plant. You could set like 2, 3, or 4 kernels, and they would drop down and trap it there. And then when it hit this knot on this wire, it would drop it. And the reason for that was so that you could cultivate it both ways. When you're done planting, you could cross cultivate, and you could cultivate the way the planter went.
I see.
So about everybody did that because they couldn't control the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
But when about the time that I got to help plant, why we had a 9N Ford tractor, and we put a 3-point hitch on those old planters, and we could plant we didn't fool with the check wire, and we just planted them in rows. And then we cultivated, we go faster than horses could, and throw dirt up over whatever weeds were between the rows, and we could pretty well clean up the corn and didn't have to mess with that. And besides that, a rotary hoe too, and whatever.
So at this time, as far as electricity in the house and that type of thing,
Oh, we didn't have electricity, and
none at all then.
well,
Or did you have a
we
12
did,
volt?
but the neighbors didn't. Dad had a light plant, what was a 32-volt system, and it had a little engine with a generator on it, about a 6-horse outfit, and it burned the kerosene, and it would charge up these batteries. So we had electric lights, and our washing machine run on a motor. And then we finally got a radio in 1936, and it would run off of this. But all the neighbors around, except very few, just had kerosene lamps and no electricity or whatever.
So you did have a washing machine then?
Oh yeah, we had a Maytag,
Huh.
and it was a Ringer washer, whatever.
So
But,
you kind of grew up then having a washing machine. It wasn't something you got later on, or?
Well, no, we had it when I first remember, whatever.
Huh.
But wash day was a big deal. You had to heat the water in a tub on a cook stove, get that real hot, have a big tub and put the water up on there, and then get your hot water in your washing machine. And we had 2 rinse tubs, and we had to get water in there and put bluing in them. And then that was out on our enclosed front porch. And wash day, why, it was a lot of work. You got stuff around and get all that water in there first, and then run a tub full in the washer and then into the ringers and in the rinse tubs, and then finally they'd be so you could go outside and hang them on a clothesline. So I got in on that. That was a job. And then when it was all over, there wasn't any drain out there, so we had to drain all that water out and carry it out and dump it outside. So
What'd the motor on the washer, what'd that run on?
well, it was an electric motor, but the 32-volt system, it took quite a bit of juice for that, so we always had to run the light plant so it would be charging the batteries while we were running that motor. But most of the neighbors had a gas engine on them that had a kick start, and lots of times the women couldn't get them started, so they'd have to go out in the field sometimes and get the farmer that was out there working in the field to come in and get that engine started.
So is that the same generator that one of your buddies tried to grab or said he could stop?
That is.
So that was who again that did that?
Ross Porter, the neighbor across the road.
Yeah. So what did he do again?
Well, Dad had this light plant motor set up so charged the batteries, but also he put a pulley on the flywheel, a smooth pulley, and then it was in the pump house so that there was a belt went over and run the pump jack so that the pumped water it would pipe down to a tank down by the barn and also up to the house, because in one of the upstairs bedrooms Dad had fixed a big water tank, and you could pump water up in there, and then it would drain down to the kitchen, and we had running water. Otherwise, nobody had any running water or anything. But of course, it was never heated or nothing. But
right. Wow.
Anyhow, so that was the way it was up there.
But
anyhow,
what was Ross doing though? He was mucking
well, it was charging without that belt on, so he goes over, had gloves on, and he gets he gets down and takes both hands and grips on that pulley, and it's smooth, of course, and he could make the engine labor and pull down a little bit. He was pretty stout. So anyway, that was kind of my dumb idea, I guess, when I took all that
Right.
tar shaft.
Probably wouldn't have done that if you wouldn't have seen Ross try to stop that.
Yeah,
Yep. Wow.
but I'll tell you something about that deal. I was 11 years old and I got that thumb off. And when I was in high school and I was got to be 18 on March 12 on senior year, and they were calling for a lot of draftees at World War II, and they took me and 30 other guys from here, 3 or 4 of my classmates, and we go for a pre-induction physical to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas on a train. Well, when they got me all through, they said I was 4F. In other words, they didn't want me because of that thumb being off.
Mm-hmm.
So Dad at that time was starting the business in Atlantic, and if I'd had to go into war, I doubt if he'd got the business started.
Right.
And besides another thing, your mom was going with another guy, and if I'd been gone, she'd probably married him, and you'd never ever been.
I wouldn't like that.
And
I wouldn't be living in
but
this
I always had my eye.
Neither would a
I
lot of
always
other
had
people.
I always had my eye on her, so I was there. And instead of being at war, I was home, and so I go to see her and talk her into going with me, and then ended up marrying her. So.
Well, I
Anyhow,
guess we can thank you losing your thumb for lots of reasons. Andrew.
Whenever you see that thumb going, think, well, it wasn't all that bad after all.
That was
that's
there.
pretty good.
Besides, when I was a mechanic, I could reach into a tighter place than you could with a thumb on.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's true.
You can get
However,
that with cars.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't recommend it, though.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Well, I don't know how long we've been talking here, but
I don't either.
we really are looking
Let
forward.
me tell you a couple of stories about Dad when he was selling machinery on the farm there before, actually, right before I was born, or maybe I was about 1 or something. Anyhow, he was a dealer for a company that was a distributor that had all kinds of small company machines, and he was a dealer and he could sell whatever they had. Well, he sold some threshing machines, which was a big deal. That threshed, they brought the bundles of corn of oats and stuff into the thresh machine.
Yeah.
Anyhow, there was a guy that had some money that lived not far away, farmer, and he had a big farm and whatever, some help, and he was interested in a thresh machine and a big tractor to run it. And so Dad worked on him, and so finally one night he went over and got him signed up on a tractor and a thresh machine. He got home about 10 o'clock or so, went up to bed. Next morning before he got up, drives a car in the driveway, and he looks out and here's this guy. So Dad thought, well, he's come to back out.
Mm-hmm.
So Dad gets his pants on, goes downstairs and opens the front door, and this guy says to him, Louis, I want you to get me 2 each of those outfits. He says, I decided I'd just as well be a man as a long-tailed rat. So we always had that saying that when we was going to do something big, we was going to be. So anyway, he got those 2 tractors.
Wow.
And
that's
so anyhow,
Did you ever
and
trade?
the tractors came into Des Moines or into Atlantic on the thresh machines on a railroad, and so Dad and guys went up and unloaded them, and they had big flat wheels they didn't come with the lugs on because the lugs would tear up the ground or whatever.
Right.
So they each hooked on to one of those tractors and started home. Well, 71 was dirt. And so when they got down to Turkey Creek Hill, it was steeper than it is now,
Right.
And so they tried to go up that hill with pulling those big heavy thresh machines, and all that thing would do is spin with no lugs on. So they stopped right there and put all these lugs. It'd be about
Now
a whole bunch of them you bolted on all the way around.
was this the thresher unit that he sold 2 of then, or is that another?
Yeah, that was the 2 that he was pulling
Okay.
home that he'd sold.
So what year roughly would that have been? You got any idea?
What you
Well,
say?
when he sold those 2 to that fellow that, you know, it's,
What they run for money?
well, no,
About what year?
what kind of year? You got any idea how?
That would have been about 1928 or so, about 28 or 9,
Okay,
or 7, 8 or 9, so it lasted the 20s.
yeah. Huh.
And then we had a thrash machine like that that Dad had owned, and so there were about 12 or 15 neighbors that we had what you call a run, and so in the summer that I was in on that. I carried water for the guys that were out in the field and everywhere on my pony.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal.
Oh.
But
Well, I'm a little. My camera, it's got like a 30-minute recording limit, and then it
Yeah.
shuts off. And I don't know where we are from that. I'm afraid we're kind of getting kind of close.
Hit that button.
okay,
Hit that button.
all right.
19 minutes.
Okay, I guess we've been talking about 20 minutes in. But
Okay.
I got a
Um,
quick question.
yeah.
Well, tell one other
Here,
story.
Jason wants to ask you a question here.
All right, go ahead.
When you were selling those Fortsons, what was the
Yeah.
value? How many horses, value-wise,
Okay,
equal to
the-
Fortson?
Dad didn't sell the Fordson, car did, but he got the Ford tractor, which was what was called a 9N and a 3-point hitch and all that. That was the first of the 3-point hitch. And he got that dealership that we still got in 1940. But that tractor, it was advertised price of $585 FOB Detroit. But by the time we got, that was with kind of small tires and stuff on it. And the ones that Dad sold, there was a tractor plow and cultivator that he sold, and that was generally sold all together, $1,000 for quite a while. That was what the price of those, we call them a 9N tractor. They were the gray outfit, 3-speed and 25 horsepower. And there's still some of them going today, for that matter.
So, like compared to the horse operation, what was the horse value then?
Well, a horse value was, let's see, probably 50, 75 for a real good one, something like that, whatever.
Yeah.
And Dad traded for horses, but he'd always just send them to a sale barn and have them sold, and so
Yeah.
so
So your used inventory was pretty low then, huh?
yeah, it was. In fact, you're right. We hardly ever traded for anything. And when we were first in business, we're down on Walnut Street, 504 Walnut, and there was no place whatever, just in that small building. So if we traded anything, finally, when we did get to trade, we had to take our used stuff out to 80 that we got out across there from the airport. And then guys would steal stuff off of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why Dad, we were the first implement dealer to ever build out of town where we had some room. And when Dad started there were, I think there were 5 other dealers in town that sold a tractor. And so anyhow, so the tractor finally got up a little bit higher and whatever, but first there were $1,000 for a tractor plow cultivator, and that replaced the horses, you know.
Right. Right.
So
Hey, going back to those threshing machines, didn't you have a neighbor boy that was killed using one of those?
we didn't, but over around Anita, over where Lon lives, we had a neighbor. I had a neighbor an old guy that lived beside of us on Mulberry Street that told me that he had a brother that was on one of those, on a thrash machine. You had a ladder up on it and had a kind of a level platform on it. Then on up to the front of it, and the front of it had a feeder that with a kind of a conveyor that, well, it was a conveyor that brought the stuff into the cylinder. and had the cylinder that did the thrashing and stuff out. It was well, like a cylinder would be. It rotated and had big kind of teeth on it,
Yeah.
and it had a lid on this thing that you could lift it up from the top and look down on it. It was plugged up or something and clean it out. Well, this kid was up on top of this thrash machine, and somehow or another somebody had left that lid open, and there was, when I was thrashing there, then it was just maybe a foot or two down to the cylinder running, and there was straw on top of it so that you couldn't see it. There was straw all over the top of the thrash machine. So this kid goes across that and steps right into this and under this cylinder running down below there.
Gosh darn it.
I putting her too gory to tell you about
Yeah,
it.
boy. Dang it.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so that was the story of that. So I'd like to forget that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way to go, Jesse.
Well, well, maybe we should kind of wrap it up here. We, looking forward to maybe Friday and you coming out and
Okay.
sit here at the table.
Yeah,
with us.
yeah.
Good to
So,
see you.
Yeah, I'd like to see you in person. So.
yeah, I know. Well,
Yeah.
I can think
Oh,
of.
let me tell you one thing more about Dad and his early dealing. He sold a plow, which got kind of popular to pull with a tractor, pull-type plow, and that was a two-bottom, 16-inch wide. Well, the guys were liking it because they could plow deep with it. So a neighbor wanted to buy one, and Dad says, "Your tractor isn't big enough." He just had an old 1020 International. He said, "Oh yeah," he says, I don't care about going that fast and whatever." He says, I want with a plow. So Dad sold it to him. Well, then he complained it wasn't working right, didn't throw the dirt right. And Dad says, "Well, I told you, that you didn't." "No," he says, "something's wrong with that plow. I want to see the company man." So Dad got the company man, and they go out, and this guy was plowing with it. And he was just going real slow so that the moldboards just didn't kind of turn it over. You need a little bit of
Yeah,
action.
you need some speed there.
So this company guy, he goes and he looks at the plow, and he looks at him a little bit and walks around there, and he looks up at this guy, and he pointed at his head, and he said to him, "Old man, the trouble's right here," pointing at his head.
Perfect.
I've often thought that, but I never had guts enough to tell anybody.
Well, a lot of times that's the case, though.
Yeah, I don't know how well it went over, but that's what the guy told him.
Wow. Well,
So,
I'm afraid my camera's going to shut off.
All right, well, let's quit then. We'll hopefully
yeah.
get.
Yeah, we'll do
All
it
right,
again.
well, I hope I get out of this jail there pretty
Yeah, I know.
quick anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, good talking to you.
Yeah,
See you
see you
later.
guys.
Have a
Okay.
good one.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.